gratuitous amounts of energy.
Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and Christian recently gave me a dealer's choice donation deck list, and I want to use that to explore something that I think has a lot of potential in Legacy, and that is the sort of Ocelot Pride Guide of Souls energy shell. For those of you who don't follow other formats other than Legacy, this has been taking Modern by storm and has kind of become a tier 1 deck list out of the middle of nowhere, really. And so today I want to look at a Boros Energy deck, but in Legacy, and our starting deck list comes from a Japanese list that is pretty spicy. So I believe the first result that I found was by Riku Nakazawa from an event at Hareruya, which is a name that I believe was intentionally made to be difficult to pronounce. Mission accomplished. And then Ricky Maru, aka Marosh08, also top 8'd with something pretty similar on Magic Online a day later, if memory serves. And so, Ricky Maru, same person, question mark? Unknown. Anyway, let's take a look at the deck list. So to start, we have the core energy shell of Galvanic Discharge as our lightning bolt with potential upside against larger creatures like Psychic Frog that might not normally die. We have Amped Raptor as our sort of half-costed Bloodbraid Elf equivalent that will usually hit something that you can cast with its energy alone. And this is the core engine, Ocelot Pride. First strike, lifelink, and ascend. If at the beginning of your end step you gain life this turn, you get a 1/1 cat creature token. Then if you have the city's blessing, for each token you control that entered this turn, you get a token that's a copy of it. And that can get out of control very quickly, especially if you control multiple of these cats. And when you pair that with Guide of Souls, giving you a whole bunch of life as your creatures enter, you are going to make a ton of tokens, and you can convert energy that you get into giving your threats evasion. And many of these threats normally maybe don't get through the larger bodies that you might see in Legacy. So I would say the stuff from here on over is pretty normal and what you would expect to see, and then the spice kind of comes from the rest of this. So, Agate Instigator says, whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. And it's got some more text that we'll cover in a minute. So you can kind of see the synergy here. You know, you play a creature, you gain 1 life, then the Ocelot Pride triggers, you get another creature, you gain another life, yeah. When you start doing that, and you also convert all of those extra tokens that you are getting into energy, it starts to turn into a real engine. And if you get to the later stages of the game where you offspring this and you get an additional 1/1 token copy of it, well, you can see how that damage would add up very quickly. Harper Recruiter is something that I played a little bit of in the Initiative shell. I was not very impressed with it in an Orcish Bowmaster world. This was a card that was probably good on paper for quite some time, and then was just released on Magic Online a little bit too late. Topping off our curve, we have 2 X spells. Jacked Rabbit, which is a 1/2 base that whenever it attacks, create a number of 1/1 rabbits equal to its power. And it also has Ravenous. So if we pay 5 or more into X, we can draw a card, and for every value of X we pay, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So imagine that you attack with your Jacked Rabbit with something conservative like 3 counters on it. Well, that's 3 Agate Instigator triggers. That's 3 Guide of Souls triggers. And you can kind of see how this scales up, and Wildfire Awakener is similar. When it enters, create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with, whenever it becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to target player. And this one has Convoke, meaning that if you're sitting on 10 cats or whatever, you can make a lot of creatures that threaten to kill your opponent on the following turn. I'm a little unsure how I feel about Aether Hub. It is a true dual land once, and if you don't need the energy for casting your spells because you already have the colored pips covered, then you can use that as extra energy to sink into your other things. I'm not sure whether or not it is better to just play a couple more copies of Plateau or something like that, or more basic lands for that matter. We are going to be doing some damage to ourselves and other people in terms of our mana bases. Actually, I don't know that I like this Caracas. I maybe should put the third basic planes back in here. Let's do that. Yeah, let's run the third basic planes over the Caracas. Like, basic planes is good. That basic planes has a tank on it, making it better. But I think if we are going to go this heavy, I do want that third basic line. Sideboard is sort of a mixture of a couple lists that I saw, plus my own tech. I felt like Null Rod as an early thing that we could play against artifacts and enchantments was probably a good idea. Space Marine Devastator is some tech that allows us to destroy artifacts or enchantments while also having Squad to keep up with the token sub-theme that is in this deck. Yeah, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into some matches here. Generally speaking, I have really liked Rikimaru's decks in the past, and we'll see how this one fares. Should you need cards for your own version of Legacy Boros Energy, or whatever it is that you want to call this, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. You always get free shipping, and promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order on top of that, and I found that their shipping is very fast as well. Let's battle. This has no lands. This is not going to do it for us. This has 2 lands. This will probably do it for us. I have a couple of sources of card advantage already. I'm going to keep this and throw back the Harper Recruiter. If Galvanic Discharge is playable on turn 1, that would be kind of cool. To just kind of make sure that I am using my mana effectively. Off Snow-Covered Island, that is unlikely. Spellbomb. This is maybe a blue Urza's Saga deck, would be my guess based on this opener. Either that or it's a slower blue control deck that is just treating this as an inefficient cantrip to help out in a warped metagame. But I'm getting like Urza's Saga, Life from the Loam type vibes as of right now. Those are Life from the Loam colors. There's an Up the Beanstalk. You've got it. So this is wastelandable. I would like more land drops. I think if my opponent does not have a counterspell right now, this is a strong play. Oh, shit. Okay, so the Jacked Rabbit we will cast. Now, we don't get to pay the Ravenous off of our pseudo cascade effect here. We potentially need to think about Toxic Deluge, Pernicious Deed type cards. Deed less likely if my opponent is playing this sort of stuff. Bowmasters should really be on my mind. That's going to be a card that's going to be very good against my deck, generally speaking. There we go. So, my opponent has chosen to do that at sorcery speed. How do I want to respond to this? Wastelanding my opponent currently knocks them off of 2 different colors. Let's cast this. Ooh. So I could attack, make a rabbit, trade for a Bowmasters while paying my opponent for 1. This is it's just worth more later. Let's just take that out. Yeah, I think I'm not gonna attack yet. And hope, okay. So that will get them another color. It will be another wastelandable land, though. There's a Murderous Cut. I've lost my Jacked Rabbit. Alright. My mana is real tight here. I think I am going to try to get my value like this. And just try to turn everything I can into direct damage. These are 1/1s. With 1 blue mana up, I should be able to safely attack in, like so. And now the Amped Raptor type cards that net me more than 1 body at the same time are going to be quite powerful. Longer term, I need to be figuring out how I am going to beat a Murktide Regent. That sort of swing on the game is something that I'm currently not super comfortable with. I'm not coming out of the gates very quickly here. Fatal Push, sure. Opponent is spending so much of their energy doing sorcery speed things rather than instant speed things. I guess I should play my Wasteland. That plays around days if my opponent is doing that. I could also attack first, although that difference is minimal. I will send in for my 1. Despite how this looks, I do believe that I am still the beatdown. We'll try to keep my opponent off of black. That keeps them from cycling the spell bomb and playing most of their removal spells. But I do need some card advantage. Wow, multiple spell bombs game 1. Sure. Okay. So I'm choked on mana here. I think we are going to do the thing that produces multiple bodies. Nice. So ping for 1. Ping for 1. Have that additional body. Attack for 1. We're not getting our Ocelot Pride value over time like we might like, but if our opponent is using all of their resources to just try to hit land drops, hopefully that means I just start getting further and further ahead. Okay, that's not blue mana. Alright, we lost our Rajani, that's fine. Ah, a new friend. We'll do this pre-combat. So, yeah. We're gonna get 2 pings again. And a new cap. Putting my opponent to 10. Now, if my opponent blocks with one of their creatures on this cat warrior, I immediately get to flip this into the planeswalker side. And generally speaking, the control player does not love it when you have a planeswalker. Ooh, it is happening. So, tradesies, transform, go to second main. I'm going to make a cat. This will immediately ping our opponent. And what does this do? Damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target. Base. So there we go. Opponent's at 5. And from 5, if our opponent just plays a Murktide Regent, we might just be able to get over the finish line in terms of damage without actually having to remove that creature. Sheoldred's Edict. Sure. Planeswalker gone. So, does our opponent have another Orcish Bowmaster as their last card? Is kind of my primary question here. I'm always playing my land drop. I think I am okay just trying to kill this immediately. That's good enough for the fetch. And a concession. I don't feel like my deck did very well that game, but we sure did win. My opponent is doing something that is super tailored towards the metagame, and like got hyper punished as a result. They did remove 4 creatures, and it just was not enough. So, do I want to attempt to mess with my opponent's non-basic lands when I expect that they will be cognizant of my wastelands this game? I am not excited about Harper Recruiter in a Bowmaster world. I think it's pretty safe to cut those for something else. Like, yes, we do have things that increase their power and toughness. I don't think I want to rely on that. I could play one of these as an out to some Up the Beanstalks, and then 3 copies of Magus of the Moon if I want to just try to knock my opponent off of black mana to keep them from removing stuff. I think that's reasonable. It could be on the draw that I should just do something more mana efficient like Price of Progress. This is where not having the reps matters. Like, my opponent may be able to play around both of these effects by just playing a bunch of basics in the early game. I think I like that for endgame. I think this one has power and toughness. I think I'm into it for that reason here. Hell yeah. This sounds great. I'm going to start on a basic plains and go from there. So, whatever I play is almost certainly going to die. I think I am going to offer up a Guide of Souls first, And then next turn I will probably just play Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride in the same turn cycle and hope that I can resolve a trigger. I would love to draw another land next turn, because as of right now I can play this game on basics, but that won't necessarily always be the case. I have plenty of red cards in my deck, and opposing Wasteland Life from the Loam is viable. So let's start here. Hope no Force of Will. Nice. I will get the non-basic. And attempt Ocelot Pride. Nice. So now we do the energy thing. I have gained life this turn, so at end step, I am going to get an additional token here, which gets me an additional energy, and we're doing the song and dance. The Magus of the Moon is also poised to just end the game pretty much immediately. We suspect, but cannot confirm, that our opponent does not currently have Force of Will. So there's that. My opponent has got to stop playing every single thing at sorcery speed. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't think you have Force of Will. Yep. This is 3 to do. This is 3 to do. I'll send in with this. I don't want to attack with the cat yet. There we go. The reason why I don't want to attack with the cat is that the cat becomes more valuable after I play Ajani. So this is a very important brainstorm. If my opponent brainstorm locks themselves, I probably just win this game. All right, there is a basic swamp. They are still playing Magic. So I think I like this one. That lets this cat be valuable. It's not the most efficient use of my mana. That would be Jacked Rabbit. But this card scales and gets better and better as the game goes on. Sure. Getting a snow-covered island. And then forcing pitching a brainstorm. Sure. Again, this cat is more valuable with this creature in play. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my attack for 3. I don't have the energy to do anything else here. Sure. There is a Psychic Frog, which makes combat tricky, but not unbearable. My opponent played a land, meaning that that Psychic Frog at its largest is a 3/4, meaning my Guide of Souls can still attack in. I think I'm into this. For X equals 2 Ravenous, and this sets up a pretty disgusting turn next turn. Am I fine with my opponent drawing a card in exchange for 3-ish damage? Given board, I think the answer to that question is yes. If that Psychic Frog is not being used defensively, I think my opponent is in trouble. It's unlikely that we are going to see something like a Toxic Deluge immediately in my opponent's hand if they are playing out the Psychic Frog. Blue Elemental Blast. Sure. So now my opponent has access to mana again. They are not funneling cards into Psychic Frog to try to make my attack step worse. Okay. No, they are trying to go in with the Psychic Frog. Unsure how that is going to work out for them. Like, it legitimately could be good, could be bad. You have chosen to ponder now. So my opponent's last card is unlikely to be a Force of Will. If they had that Force of Will prior to Psychic Frog, they just pass the turn with 5 mana available. I can get a huge amount of value by doing Offspring on the Instigator, but that sort of play is going to make me worse against a single counterspell if my opponent does have one. So I think to hedge against that, I am going to just go ahead and cast this first, see if my opponent responds to it, and then do, I think, Amped Raptor. Okay. I think that matchup should have been harder for me, but my opponent did not optimize the timing of their removal spell. They didn't wait until the last minute to cast their removal spells, so I often got to kind of like sneak in some little things or have more agency than I should have in my combat choices. I'm also not sure how I feel about multiple main deck spell bombs. Not saying it's bad, but it like very clearly was bad for my opponent against a pile of wastelands, And Wasteland is something that we are seeing not only from these tempo deck lists, but also from the Eldrazi deck lists. And if that pressure is being put on your mana base to the point where you can't cast your cards, like, you're dead.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out.
Okay. I think against an unknown opponent, I would keep this hand. I believe that against a sneak and show player, this is not really going to come out of the gates fast enough. I would really like 1-drop into relevant 2-drop. I have very little disruption, and Wasteland is not super likely to be disruption. I think I'm going to try to find something that comes out of the gates a little faster. This, in theory, does that. I'm going to get rid of the Galvanic Discharge. That's pretty unlikely to matter in this matchup. But this is a matchup that I just expect to lose, if I am being honest. We are not on... Ooh. Let's Guide of Souls here. I can Guide of Souls into double Ocelot Pride next turn and then trigger both. Trigger Guide of Souls twice and Ocelot Pride twice. Again, though, I think I am just going to get out Goldfished. There's the fetch for the Brainstorm. Oh. So, if I Guide of Souls again, that's 1 energy, and then I Ocelot Pride, that's 3 energy, then the Guide of Souls gets to do its combat thingy this turn. I am into that. Alright, there's energy and life. Do the same thing here. That was good enough for a Force of Will. We'll still get 1 point of damage in this turn, but we don't have the energy to do the thing here. And this is the turn where we have to start worrying about a large creature coming into play and just defeating me. Yeah? We'll put the more expensive one into play. Grizzlebrand is a pretty okay creature. The draw 7 is gonna be rough. Ooh. So... let's Ocelot Pride. This is worth some amount of damage and life. I really wanted my opponent to draw 7 in response to that. They didn't. I will attempt this. On average, this should not work. It does. That may just mean that my opponent has enough stuff in hand to kill me. So yes, somebody's getting big. We're going to make the thing with the biggest booty get bigger. Then I don't have enough energy the second time around. Opponent goes to 10. Then I gain some more life, make a cat. We're not quite at the city's blessing yet. We're on the right track. We're doing powerful stuff. But I don't think, on average, we race our opponent here. Oh god. Are we dead yet? Not technically dead yet. But it sure isn't good. Spirit Guide for giggles. Spirit Guide for giggles. Lotus Petal, sure. Fable, sure. Brainstorm. Just Emrakul me. Just end it. Don't give me this hope. Okay. Eh? How is... oh, fuck, a main deck Chaos Defiler. Damn. My Instigator. Okay. Well, we got some work to do to get through an Atraxa then. Or, and hear me out. No! I Yu-Gi-Oh'd so hard. I will just be passing the turn here. And I expect that this game is now over. My opponent gets to loot through the bad cards that remain in their hand. And even cantrips are just batshit insane good right now. And something like an Emrakul is just game ending. Yeah. No, that's a disaster. That's worth a lot of cards in addition to everything else. Opponent's not drawing super well, but my combat step has been shut off, so that's not great for me. Alright, opponent just sending in with everything. I'm going to draw my card here and try to make sense of what I should do with blocks. So what, this is 7. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You trample. This fog is rough. I'm going to gain 2 life. I'm going to try to keep everything. And I don't know, maybe there's a timeline where I can Galv Blast away some stuff, but it looks pretty hopeless from this side of the battlefield as of right now. I'm not sure exactly what I am playing towards. So there's 11. There's a Jacked Rabbit. There's 13 life. So my combat step is not fruitful this turn. I Ocelot Pride at end of turn, gain a little more life. But my opponent has like Atraxa plus the 1 ring, Fable, plus Atraxa next turn, Fable plus Chaos Defy. All right. We put up more of a fight than I would have expected here. We have minimal sideboarding options. Maybe this is viable. I don't know that I want to mess with the non-basic hate versus this deck. I don't think that makes a ton of sense. Galvanic Discharge on a large creature is a bit of a pipe dream. So I think we are going to board that out, try this other stuff. And again, I think I need to play a 1-drop to have a chance to goldfish my opponent. This is not going to do it colored mana-wise. We'll go to 5. This is our best one so far. That goes back, and presumably this goes back. I'm going to be a little tight on mana, even counting the Convoke. So if I have 2 lands, I play Guide into Instigator. I can do this for X equals 1 if I miss a land drop. X equals 2 if I don't. It is a theoretical 1, 2, 3 curve if I keep it. I kind of miss out on an attack step, though. I'm not in love. Let's Guide of Souls and pass. No cantrip from our opponent on turn 1 here. Well, our friend came back. I'm going to be lazy and just play my thing pre-combat. And we're going to do this in a mana-efficient way. A Brainstorm, sure. Now, because we know our opponent is playing the 1 ring, every single point of damage that we can push does matter, as we could leave our opponent in situations where, fuck. Are we doing the 3-2? Feels like that's best if I cast it despite it costing more. I'm going to put in another Guide of Souls. It's an Atraxa. So that's a lot of cards that my opponent is looking at, including a Force of Will and a blue card to pitch to it. Chaos Defiler an artifact too. Yeah. Ugh. If this happened more slowly, maybe I can life gain my way through an Atraxa, as wild as that is to say, but we're certainly not there as of right now. Alright. Let's get rid of the stuff that my opponent took. So Emrakul, Chaos Defiler, Show and Tell, Underground Sea, no Abrade, no Force of Will. Well, this one. This gives us X equals 2. I still think this might get Force of Willed. Like, my opponent didn't take Force of Will when they had the opportunity to, so kind of feels like they already just have one. That's a shame. That would have been strong. So now I am just potentially staring down Show and Tell Emrakul, Show and Tell Chaos Defiler, whatever my opponent wants here. Ugh. Concede. We are not coming back from that. GG's. So without knowing the matchup here, it's pretty hard to evaluate whether or not I should keep this hand. I'm going to assume that on average I want something more creature dense than this. Yes, this hand is considerably stronger. I'll keep this one, I think, throwing back a plateau, although it's kind of close. My opponent is on 5 cards. I'm keeping the Wasteland to hedge against potentially running into something like Eldrazi that is trying to utilize soul lands. Oh, sure. I am largely good with that. We do have some stuff in the deck that is going to be done without paying mana costs. Blackcleave Cliffs is really weird. I think my opponent might be on some sort of Reanimator deck. I think I am just going to Wasteland them after they mulliganed into Oblivion and hope that that is good. It's so weird to play a Black Cleave Cliffs unless you just want additional dual lands immediately. And so Black-Red Reanimator is about the only thing. I want Guide of Souls. Like, what am I doing next turn? I want to play Ocelot Pride. Can't explain why. Gut just is telling me that I should do that. Gamble. Discarding Entomb. Okay, my call was correct. Galvanic Discharge is probably not going to be great. So, let's do our cat thing. 19. Can I just put this in my hand afterwards? You may cast that card. No. So I think I am just going to play Jacked Rabbit for 0 and try to combine that with Guide of Souls to pop off. And if I combine that with Guide of Souls successfully, I probably end up generating enough energy to Galvanic Discharge away a large creature. I imagine that my opponent's hand was... Wow, Mox Opal. Sure. Okay. No cracking LED in response. Oh, it's Echo of Eons. Sure. Alright, so my opponent was more Storm-like than I was expecting. So I could die. We'll see. A new gamble. Junking and Entomb. So it's Entomb for Echo of Eons is the general plan that my opponent is doing. Alright. Burning Wish or Tendrils. That'll kill me. That's a shame. It's very funny that a fetch land killed me. Otherwise I have 21 and I am exactly alive. Yeah, so order of these cards could have mattered here. Null Rod, obviously good. Fairy is not usually going to actually take out an Echo. My opponent is going to get priority after doing something like entombing it, so I don't know that that actually gets done what I want it to. Against Urza's Saga, I will probably play Magus of the Moon, not expecting it to be good. My Swords to Plowshares are not particularly strong here, neither is Galvanic Discharge. War Leader's Call, and most of my 3-drops here are pretty slow. Galvanic Discharge is really weak, though. I'll keep a few of them to help answer Urza's Saga tokens and trim something like a Harper Recruiter. This is not going to be a good pairing for us. We're probably going to lose this one in short order. Is this a mulligan to Null Rod, like Null Rod or Bust situation? Not playing Ley Lines, and that matters so much here. I don't think this wins. I don't think this wins. I don't think this wins. I don't think this wins, but I'm on 4 cards, and at some point I have to just accept an opening hand. This is not great. We are very much not looking to get paired against combo. We want to grind through traditional blue cantrip decks. Like that is our plan. Alright, it's just Urza Saga and pass. So hopefully Amped Raptor hits well. And I just kind of come out swinging here. 21. New Guide of Souls. We'll cast that. Trigger Guide of Souls. Go to Punchies. Hit with Punchies. Pay the thing. And we get in for 3. I have a lot of damage on board. And we'll just see what my opponent can do. It looks like combo. Yep. That's a shame. We would have goldfished relatively quickly here. So this is going to be a gamble for an Echo. And then notice if I had something like Fairy, there's just no opportunity for me to use Fairy. These are great cards if I get a turn. I think on average I don't. Okay, I just get to Wasteland in Urza's Saga. Or a Badlands, depending on how I want to approach that, and then follow up with a Null Rod. But again, I think I should die here. Sure. Storm count is 8. Is a new Rite of Flame? Yep. Isn't black black? Okay, no, we are just doing the draw 7 song and dance again. Now, this time I could have responded and eaten it, but my opponent was just doing all this to get black black effectively. So the Tendrils just kills me, unfortunately. GG's. Okay, we have a decent opening hand here. This is likely to be fairer, unless my opponent is just playing Nadu, in which case I am sad. After my opponent mana ramped, do I want to wasteland? Not really. Do I need to wasteland? Maybe. This is not a true mana dork, right? This is legendary spells. I think I am going to take a risk here and wasteland this Savannah, knowing that some portion of the time I get massively rewarded for that. This is looking like it might be a Bant Nadu deck, in which case our general weakness to combo will be exploited yet again. Maximize life gain for Guide of Souls. Last turn. End of turn Brainstorm. Probably just for raw mana efficiency here. And this will be a Ponder to potentially shuffle the last couple cards from that Brainstorm. Opponent still does not have true white mana. Living Wish. Still feels like Nadu to me. Hey, my called shot is correct. So, keep swords for Nadu, probably, rather than knock this out of play. Let's go Yaw. I think I just play this now. Yaw. Okay. Combat. Punchies for 1. They don't have the energy right now to pay. And then I get a cat, I get an energy. A counterspell here is gonna be real rough. Okay, sure. So this Nadu is uncounterable, and my opponent could have cast it if I got rid of a Delighted Halfling. So it's in play. I am going to try to remove it end of turn. I'm not going to play around a daze. I think my own mana efficiency matters too much. My opponent gets another Delighted Halfling. We remove a Nadu. Ooh, that's going to be gas. So I think I go, yeah, do that thing. And then white, bunch of times, red, red. I still get to do this for x equals 3. I'm going to get a lot of energy. These things now enter. I am going to get a lot more energy. We're going to yield to all energy generating abilities here. But I wasn't done. Because I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I have the City's Blessing. Meaning, for each token I controlled that entered this turn, I get a token that is a copy of it. So, we are going to get a lot of friends there. Okay. So, my opponent is on a Living Wish Nadu build. I can do some stuff that messes with either lands or ways that they might combo off. I have not seen this deck in action before, so off the top of my head, I do not know whether or not it will be a green sun deck. Harbor Recruiter feels slow here. I think I am going to cut those for some amount of interaction of some kind. Let's assume that Shuko is a core part of the combo still. I don't think I'm into this stuff. Unsure if Green Sun is part of the deck. This is not fantastic. I think I will just do this as another way to answer a Shuko or potentially Urza Saga. I believe I only saw green and blue this game. This hand seems fine. I will keep this one. Or no, there was a Savannah on turn 1 that I wastelanded. They do have white as well. Alright, so now I just decide whether or not I am going to answer that Delighted Halfling immediately. I could do the same thing that I answered last time, that I did last time, but my opponent mulliganed previously, whereas they didn't this time. I would really, really, really like to draw another colored mana source. I need to be thinking about Galvanic Discharge at a large enough level to answer a Nadu. And we're not there yet. Black mana as well. Alright, there is the Nadu. So, that does it for me. Guide of Souls into Galvanic Discharge works. So we're gonna just attempt that. This is why Galvanic Discharge gets played over Lightning Bolt. So, my opponent does get a bonus land there, which means they could like Nadu plus Shuko in one turn cycle. We are going to go 4, and then do my Love Tap for 1. And then hopefully I get to follow up with Null Rod next turn to make things safer for me. But again, I could just die now, depending on how redundant my opponent's hand actually is. Sure. So what's the black mana for? Discard? Sideboard options? Okay, it is a Green Sun deck, so that's Nadu again. Is there Shuko as well? Okay, there is Nomads in core. Alright, sure. So, in case you're not familiar with the combo, my opponent is going to repeatedly target their creatures with a 0-cost ability to repeatedly trigger Nadu. This is going to allow them to get a bunch of extra lands and draw a bunch of extra cards. I am just hopefully going to be done there. My opponent gets Force of Will to protect their Nadu stuff, and then they're going to get to just do it again. And my Null Rod does not actually stop combo portions of the deck here. The fetched Dryad Arbor can be re-triggered multiple times. And my opponent will keep playing creatures that allow them to continue this chain. At this point, I'm just going to give you the end of turn update. I will probably end up just conceding. Okay, my opponent has ended their turn. They have Force of Will. I don't have anything that's particularly strong here. I imagine that I'm going to put this spell on the stack and then concede. But who knows, right? Cool. I will gain a little life. I will play a Jacked Rabbit. Gain some more. My opponent has a 3/4 flyer. I can have a 3/4 flyer if I attack. My Wasteland is not the strongest here. My opponent can also just like recombo at instant speed. So life's bad basically is what I am getting at. And even if my opponent does not just combo off and win, I think they out mid-range me very easily here. So it's now my end step. My opponent is going to do this thing again. And just do the same thing they did on my own turn. I am convinced enough that I'm going to lose that I am just going to concede here. I don't think it is worth my time to play out. When I am on the play, I like Magus of the Moon a little bit better. It may stop my opponent from continuing the chain when creatures get stuck in their hand and aren't castable. My opponent is less likely to be on the Shuko type stuff. This is less good, and these are less good. So I will play Magus of the Moon to round things out. But again, this deck is not built to beat combo decks. This is a weak hand. I am unhappy with this. I don't know that I want to keep this. Like, this is a good value card. I think I just have stronger openers on 5. This'll do. I can play on... Well, there's downsides to playing on basics. So it's turn 1 Ocelot Pride. Turn 2 Instigator. Turn 3 probably Swords to Plowshares, some like Anadu. I will get rid of one of these, and I'm going to put back Basic Mountain. Sometimes I draw in a way where I need white. Thinking about leading on Plateau. I suppose I don't need to do that. Yeah, I suppose I don't need to do that. My opponent is also mulliganing to 5, so hopefully we both just have bad hands, and my bad hand comes out on top because I am on the play. Cat. Cat plus Instigator is a lot of damage if I can get that going. Okay, cool. We dodge a Delighted Halfling style card. I think I'm going to just give the love tap and play the Instigator. Take 1. And then we are hoping to just kind of extract as much value as we can from the direct damage. Are we Force of Willing here? We are brainstorming at the very least. Oh, nice. We're in play. Which means I start rolling out the direct damage. And we just see how hard my opponent can put the brakes on what I am doing. Oh, interesting. My opponent played a land and then pondered rather than ponder and then have the option to fetch something away. That's probably a mistake. Nice. So, let's get amped. So there's 1 damage. Get another Instigator. Drunk. Send in for 3 points of damage. And then get 2 more triggers at end step for 2 more damage. I might just kill my opponent next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 initial damage showing. My opponent can, like, Nadu here. Oh, do you just have Illusionist, too? Okay, no, it's a Living Wish. That's probably fine. There's a Nadu. This is not going to make it around the table. So, Ajani is worth... how much damage? 4 damage directly, putting my opponent to 6. If they block this, they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then Cat at end step deals additional damage. Guide of Souls is worth 2 direct damage, putting my opponent to 8. This is blocked. It's just better to block this if my opponent is just trying to survive the turn. If this is blocked, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage. This is worse versus a counter spell. If my opponent has the counter spell, I probably just die though. So let's Ajani. First strike on the Ocelot Pride is real good here. Okay, we do get there. Combo matchups feel scary. I hope we fight against something fair in the last round. We do not like a 6-lander here. I'm going to mulligan this one. I do not like this hand. So, like, I get rid of the Wasteland, and this is probably the 6. I don't come out of the gates very quickly. Like, I play a turn 2, 1, 2, a turn 3, 1, 3, and then I attack. I get kind of 2 future damage out of that. I think we can do better than this. Let's go to 5. Okay. I have a value 2 drop that I'm going to hope salvages this. I don't have a Surveil land in this list. The ETB tapped is too much of a downside of this list, so I think I agree with that. I think I am keeping multiple copies of this, getting rid of the Wasteland. All right. We're on the back foot already. Bloodstained Mire. Fuck. Yeah. So this is yet another combo matchup, which our deck is not built to fight. I don't think I am going to out-goldfish my opponent here, who is likely to just go Entomb into Reanimate or equivalent. I'm going to thin the deck. Like, we've seen a Grizzlebrand. Opponent's not going to be Wastelanding. So, let's spin the wheels with Raptor and hope for the best here. We have a Jacked Rabbit. I would not say that that is the best. The way that we win is my opponent not being able to produce a reanimation target or spell. That is incredibly unlikely. They kept their 7. So I feel like my opponent should do the thing either this turn or next turn on average. Well, I mean, maybe they didn't mulligan to a reasonable hand and I win because they don't do anything ever? That would be cool. Like, if I get another attack step, we can maybe start looking at putting my opponent below the range of Reanimate on something like a Grizzlebrand. I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage coming. Okay. Galta. Sure. Shallow Grave even, so it's with haste. Yeah, okay. That's not great for me. So I eat 12 damage immediately. My opponent has 14 power worth of lifelink in play as well. And this tramples. In the back of you, save me. Damage equal to the number of creatures I control. 3-ish, 4-ish creatures? Sure. It does not seem likely that that matters. But we could try. So if my opponent can continue going in any capacity, this is their chance to do so. A lot of times these instant speed reanimator decks can play things like Children of Corliss to go and regain life from Grizzlebrand to do some cool things. And we could even see something like a Storm finish from this deck list and lose immediately. There is an actual factual Animate Dead on an Archon. Sacrifice a creature or planeswalker. I'll lose a rabbit, I guess. I do not know how I win from here. Oh, there's another Archon. Sure. So it is looking like my opponent might not have the Storm combo finish side of things. So it seems like I can kill something, but I die in the air to the other somethings. They don't deal 10. So I can have 4 or 5 creatures in play. I can hit my opponent in the face for 5. That doesn't do it. These don't get through. I'm not going to show my opponent more cards. Fairy in, Containment Priest in. Null Rod is sketch. It's a thing I could do. Harper Recruiter is very slow here. I'm going to get rid of that. And then probably drop something like this. We are not winning the matchup lottery today, folks. I can't keep a 7 that looks like this. I think I need a fairy in my opening hand. At least at a higher... Well, I'll accept a Containment Priest. That's fine. I'm going to throw away the second Amped Raptor and keep the possibility of wastelanding my opponent at some point in this game. But I'm just going to die on turn 1 a decent amount of the time. Again, I don't think the hand is a mulligan, but I think my opponent goes off under me or thought seizes / unmasks me a decent amount of the time and just invalidates the degree of interaction that exists within my deck. Sure. I think I need to Aether Hub this turn. I end up reusing that energy for Raptor a decent amount of the time for next turn. Now that I've drawn Arid Mesa, I'm going to change my mind. Attack for 1, make my cat friend, and call it a turn. Is this the removal spell on the other side? Yes. So, let's see what my opponent's got. My opponent has these random Surveil lands, presumably in multiples, attempting to hit things in graveyard. Thoughtseize, target me. I'll respond. Fetch. We can get the duel here. I'll cast Containment Priest. I will unfortunately lose Amped Raptor. But Ocelot Pride, in theory, could try to solo this game if my opponent does not produce a body in play. And then hopefully I just top deck well. That's not perfect. We'll take it. Take out the theater. And this is increasing damage every turn. We're going to hit for 4, then 5, then 6, and so forth. Yep. Make my friend. And then hopefully Wasteland can keep my opponent off of bigger plays. I do know that my opponent has removal spells in their deck list, such as Fell the Profane. But we don't need to hold off for that long. One of the issues here is that my opponent can just like Dark Ritual into a Grief and it stops my attacks in the short term. Yeah. So this is not a long-term problem. It is a short-term problem. We will keep attacking our opponent's mana, but I can't really offer this trade reasonably, even with Fairy, I think. I think it's just too easy to lose the game. I will assume that over the course of the next few turns, I can draw something that lets me break this board open. Sure. Not sure if it's correct to play out that Lotus Petal. There's a Faithless Looting in graveyard. Sure. With 2 fairies, can I now offer this trade? I think with 2 fairies, I can offer this trade. Ooh. Opponent unwilling to trade. They see the value in not letting this engine get out of control. Alright. So this starts getting scarier when my opponent has more cards in hand. I think it's still fine. I'm gonna offer the same trade. Alright, opponent accepts this time. Now my Ocelot Pride can start getting in there. And that's just more land from my opponent. Not what they want to see. I also don't want to see more land. Send it. We get 3 this turn total. And then 4 on the following turn. I have my opponent on a 2-turn clock. At some point, I can think about junking the Faithless Looting. I don't think that's a problem right now, though. I think my opponent uses a Lotus Petal to get rid of it, and then goes down another card, discards 2 cards, put a creature into the bin, and then I just fairy it away. I think that's fine as of right now. Reanimate targeting Amped Raptor. I will respond. I will junk the Amped Raptor, and I will junk one of your Griefs. And now, the life loss from reanimate is starting to become problematic for my opponent. Nice. Because my opponent can't reanimate larger things like Grief anymore. The opponent's at 3. Lejani. Now removing my cats is a problem. The Planeswalker here is quite good. I have the City's Blessing. I get 2 cats. Oh, that's some shit. Correct to put in the fairy. My opponent gains, let's say, like 7-ish life. Say they block fairy. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. Yeah, this might be relevant to put in. All right, there is an Archon. Okay, so this is fine. So I will Archon, get rid of a cat, transform my Planeswalker, and that is worth a ton of damage with the plus ability. If I draw a red permanent, I can just go face. I've drawn so many lands. Yeah, so we will just +2. Cat Parade. All right, cool. So we covered the graveyard there. The show and tell pivot plan, I don't have something like Red Elemental Blasts for. I could try to Magus of the Moon that. That does not seem stellar. I think I'm just submitting the deck as is. I mean, I'm gonna keep it, but I'm not happy about it. It's not a particularly strong hand, but it covers the graveyard well and has the potential to do something strong later on, just not really immediately. Galvanic Discharge is one of those things that is in the deck to have additional outs to stuff, but it's not super good. My opponent gets to unmask me. They can take one of my 2 fairies. And they do. They now know that the other one is there. That information is quite real. I'll play Aether Hub this turn. Hello? Yeah. Accumulating energy to make Galvanic Discharge hit something with, 7 or 8 toughness could be relevant this game. Unlikely to be relevant, but it could be relevant. Cat. How do I feel about Cat? I think I like Cat. That's just multiple bodies to work on Convoke for Wildfire Awakener. Produces the most immediate damage here. I can Galvanic Discharge a Cat token if I want my Planeswalker. I don't think that's where I am at immediately. Attack for 3, play Jacked Rabbit for 1. Do a relatively large Wildfire Awakener turn in the not too distant future seems okay. I could also just Wildfire Awakener now. Also just Wildfire Awakener now. Put the most pressure on. I could attack for 2 and it's kind of the same amount of short-term damage. This is more long-term damage. But I'm not immediately pressuring life totals for something like Reanimate. Alright, cool. So without mathing it out, I probably have lethal next turn. With a Jacked Rabbit. So, oh, this is to target player. Save targets, always yield. So there's 18. Then combat damage. Bringing my opponent to 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I still just easily have that. I might need to power through a creature. Let's play Jacked Rabbit for the higher value and lose 1 life. I've still got the graveyard covered. I'm not super strong versus show and tell here. I don't care about a smaller creature like Grief. Yeah, no, that's fine. So I will just let you take my fairy here. Or take my Galvanic Discharge. And now it needs to be like Entomb plus produce creature, find a way to gain some life. Yep. There's an Atraxa. There's a Reanimate. I am currently just beating that. My opponent needs like an unmask effect to take my Galvanic Discharge. Oh, I also just control red permanents. So my opponent needs to take both of my cards or they are dead on board. I just stop lifelink from happening and kill my opponent, or I produce a cat that kills my opponent. Oh, cool. I like this part. So let's go Yah. Let's go Yah. And Yah will attempt the Ajani kill first. I will keep this one. Transform my Planeswalker. Make a cat. I control a red permanent. Damage equal to number of creatures I control to any target. I choose your face. Well, we got there. I don't know if we deserved to get there, but we did go positive in the league despite some really tough pairings. All right, so what do we think about this deck at the end of the day here? Generally speaking, I think that the stuff that is here is powerful. However, I don't think you can play this in a metagame where you reasonably expect a combo presence. Like, you just have to be paired against fair stuff all day. I don't think your metrics versus combo are good. This deck can come out of the gates very aggressively. If I were going to play this again, I would probably cut Harper Recruiter from the deck. I think you are desperately in need of something that can interact with combo in literally any capacity. I don't know that the card advantage is needed here when you end games so quickly. I don't know what that anti-combo card is. Maybe some sort of Hate Bear, some sort of Canonist Thalia type card, maybe even just a Vexing Bauble or something like that. Vexing Bauble is maybe not the best example. Having something that interacts with combo, or alternatively, something that threatens to end the game immediately is, I think, reasonable. And I don't think the speed of Harper Recruiter threatens to end the game. Given how much combo we played against, we didn't get the best look at some of the Offspring and X'd cost creatures, but I think they had a strong enough showing today that, like, we can conclude that these are probably solid Magic cards. I don't know, maybe you could fuck around and play 4 main deck Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast type cards or something like that, and just be better tuned at removing Psychic Frogs and stopping cantrips, and some portion of the time you have some dead cards. Just kind of spitballing out loud here. So generally speaking, I give this the shaky thumbs up. I think if you are expecting to play against blue cantrip decks literally all day, you will probably enjoy playing this deck, and the value that you get from a bunch of these creatures and the strange things you do to combat math probably end up working in your favor. I think this is very good deck building. All right, folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. If you need cards, consider TOAMagic.com. Use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. And I'm all out of energy, so I'm going to call it a day. See ya.